I'm going to start with a little bit of story about myself and where I am, and I'll keep it short. But when I was 27 years old, I graduated from Columbia Business School, and I was looking for a job in the cosmetics industry, which was unusual for Columbia Business School. They helped you with your job search, but there were a lot of people going into financial services and a lot of people going into consulting. So I had to figure out how to find a job on my own. And I did that, and it took about 8 months, which was really punishing. Eventually, and let me tell you the very short version of this, I ended up going to L'Oreal, which was a fantastic company. I got promoted in the first year, so everything was going really well. I was a high performer. And then one day my boss called me into her office and said, Claire, sit down. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I just got promoted. I'm sure it's really good news. And she said, we've had to do our annual reorg. They used to reorganize us so that we would get experience on different categories. And it turned out that they had a VP who wanted to transition from sales into marketing. And they basically decided that they wanted to help her succeed at that, and that she would need a very small category, number one, and number two, she would need some experienced junior person to help her, to basically reverse mentor her. So they chose me. And of course, she's telling me this is a great opportunity because some of the most successful people at L'Oreal start with these tiny little brands. But I'm thinking in my mind, I don't understand. I'm here every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. I never complain. I ask for feedback. I take initiative. Like, how could this be happening to me? I work 12-hour days. But at the time, I was still pretty young. I was just 29 years old, and I was really nervous about speaking up because I thought, if I speak up and I complain, it'll sound like I'm complaining, and they're going to turn on me, and they're going to decide that I'm not, that I'm not the hardworking, ambitious person that they thought I was. So I kept my mouth shut. I didn't say anything, and they really didn't reach out to me very much during that time. And I worked with this woman. Nobody liked her much, so we were off in Siberia together. And after about 6 months, I got a call from a headhunter, which I think is what a lot of people in my situation would have done. I was disappointed. I felt let down by the management. So I went on the interview, and there were all these red flags. There were so many signs telling me that this was not a good opportunity for me. But I went anyway. I went on a second interview, and then I took the job. And then 2 months later, I was fired. And in hindsight, I wasn't so much upset for the company that fired me because I think they didn't really set me up for success, but I felt bad for the company that let me go there and for the team. And the reason for that is that I spent the next few years learning a lot more about myself and understanding what I was good at, how to communicate that, how to effectively and confidently communicate my needs to my boss and to the management. And after a few years, I did work during that time. I found a job at Christian Dior, which was okay. I didn't love it. But eventually I landed at an industry supplier where it was a fantastic team. I had the maturity to communicate with my boss what I needed, what I wanted, and I was much better aligned with what I was good at. And what happened then was really exciting because my boss and I took a $2.5 million account and grew it to 14 million in 3 years. So why do I tell you this story? You don't even know me, and I'm telling you a story about being fired. I tell you this story because this job search and career management is extremely, extremely important to me. That was obviously a painful moment in my life. And I don't want others to have to suffer the same fate and go through the same things, but it also was a pretty extreme scenario in a way. And so what I learned well. And I've developed it into the program we're going to talk about today, which is not so much job search, but the idea that job search, career management, your performance as a leader, right? So your performance at work, they're all interconnected. And really my hope is that you learn to manage your career from beginning to end, that it's not only about job search. And so to my mind, this time of coronavirus is really a unique opportunity because in my experience at this point, you know, I went on to spend a total of 18 years in corporate life before I started my coaching practice in 2008. So 12 years, I've worked with hundreds of people, one-on-one and in groups, but primarily one-on-one. And oh, I lost my train of thought. What I always want for them, here's what happened over and over is what's unique about this coronavirus time is that people almost always, when they want to find a job or get a promotion, they think it's going to be a month or two. And the reality is it's typically 3 to 6 months to make a significant change. If you're looking for a promotion, you should be strategizing and working towards that promotion and influencing the people who can make the decision a year in advance. And so if this coronavirus time offers us one thing, it's to do the job search and the career pivot or the career next step with the thorough attention that it really deserves. Okay, so that was a long intro, and I'm going to read some of your comments now so that I know exactly where we are. And I hope you don't mind, I won't read any names, but so somebody looking for a new role, left my last role in March. It was not a culture or a role fit, okay? I was supposed to intern abroad, but the program will, I'm sorry about that, it will most likely be canceled. Great, looking for advancement, current position for a year, but I'm looking to transition. So it sounds like you guys are in those early years where you spend anywhere from 2 to 4 years in a position, and that's fine, right? That's how it should be in the beginning. Environmental consultant, looking for a new job in sustainable, great. Renewables. I'm an MPA grad, moved to France, went to get my MBA. Not very easy to find a job in sustainability, and now things have slowed down. Interning for the summer, looking for a new job with an autumn start. Undergraduate, summer fellowship was canceled. Great, so it sounds like it's a lot of job search. So I'm gonna focus on the job search, but I want you guys all to realize that when you do this well, the messaging and the way that you position yourself carries you through for the rest of your career. So even if you position yourself to hiring managers right now, then in 3 or 4 years, that's how you're going to be speaking to your boss about yourself and what you can do, okay? Okay, career management advice, intern summer abroad canceled due to lack of funding, okay. Interview tips, goals for making. Okay, I don't know if we'll totally get to the interview part, but I'll do my best. Hopefully some of this, it is relevant to interview, but okay, everybody ready? Here we go. So we're looking at the long game, right? And what I have here, this impossibly complicated chart, and forgive me, but I'm going to explain it to you. Julie knows this is exactly not the way to create a slide, but I'm going to explain it to you because I had so many people ask me about the job search process that I really wanted to put it all in one place. So I'm going to explain this. Number one, you see this timeline at the top. It says month 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 4. And there's a reason why those are simultaneous. The reason for that is that a lot of this stuff, it's not linear, okay? You go back, you re-dip, maybe you get up to having a bunch of interviews, but something falls through, so then you go back to looking at targets again. what we're going to talk about today is the process for what we call the hidden job market. I think the first big mistake that people make is that they look for jobs online or on LinkedIn, or they basically look for jobs that are already posted as being available. And this is a very different approach. What we do in this approach is, instead of looking online, seeing a job description and trying to see whether you could write your resume so that it looks good for that job, what we're doing instead is that we're talking about, what do I want to do and why? And in order to do that, you have to look at your skills, your interests, your values, you know, and by skills, I don't mean acquired knowledge. Like working in the energy business is not a skill. What you do and the role that you're best suited for within the energy business, that is the skill, okay? So looking at what you do and why you create, if you look at your top 3 to 5 strengths or areas of greatest ability, they will congeal into a role description, a job description in a way, okay? A very loose one. Then we figure out where. So within, you know, you guys are in an area where there's a lot of public sector work, there's a lot of private sector work, there is for-profit, nonprofit, NGOs. You know, there are people selling solar panels door to door, and then there are people working on sustainability for Shell oil, right? This is a huge, huge. So even within energy, you have to figure out where, okay? And what we, in order to figure out where, you take those skills, right? You combine it with your knowledge, because at that point, you have acquired some knowledge. So we're going to use your knowledge to sell you, you know, you're going to use a combination of knowledge and your inherent skills to convince people that you would be capable of a job. And you're going to look at the culture. So I just said, you know, the culture of an NGO is very different than working at Shell Oil, right? So culture is, where exactly do you want to do what you want to do? What is the industry? Is there a international component, a domestic component, regional? Do you want to work mostly with men and women? Should it be a small company, a big company? These are all questions to ask. And I'm sure many of you are thinking to yourselves now, well, how do I get to choose that? You know, I just have to go with what's available. And while I'm sure that that can be the case if you're in a geographic area and it's small and you don't have an option to move right now and those sorts of things, but the more you understand about what you would prefer, the more convincing you will be to hiring managers, okay? So once we have this, what do I want to do and where do I want to do it, then we have a target. So a target might look like, I mentioned that I'd worked at L'Oreal. A target might be, I want to be a brand manager within the beauty space at a Fortune 500 company, or, you know, a mid-sized or Fortune 500 in the New York area. So that is a target. You can identify about 20 to 30 organizations that would have those jobs, and many of them would have multiples of those jobs, right? Just within Shiseido or L'Oreal, you have 18 divisions within each of those companies, or the Estee Lauder companies. So a target is company size, job title, and hopefully within an industry so that there are many of them. Now, why do we do that? We do that because marketing yourself can be exhausting if you don't have a target. So let's say I say, oh, I want to do a job in marketing. I really like marketing. Well, if I'm going to leave it that open, I could end up at Colgate-Palmolive, I could end up at Shiseido, I could end up at RJ Reynolds selling cigarettes, I could end up selling pharmaceuticals. And if you try to network and meet people across those 4 different industries, you will become exhausted. You will be out every night. You'll probably never meet the same person twice, so you won't have a lot of traction. The benefit to focus is that you can connect with people in person at events. Right now we're doing online events, but also within LinkedIn. You know, when people, like if you go on my LinkedIn profile, I know a ton of people from the beauty industry. And that is because of the years that I spent there, and many of them know each other. So what is the first thing most of us do when we go on LinkedIn is we look to see who else does that person know. And the more people you know in the industry you're looking at, the more comfortable people are engaging with you, okay? So think of the target as, of course, it's important because you want to know what you want, and you want to be able to say that very clearly. And then also you want to reduce the amount of marketing and selling of yourself that you need to do. So once we're going to spend a lot of time in here today. Once you have the target, we're going to develop the impact statement. I call it the impact statement because it's really your elevator pitch, but I call it the impact statement because what matters, and what we'll see in a minute, is not all of your brilliant experience and how smart you are and all the amazing internships you got. But if you can go into a hiring manager and say, this is what I think I can do for you, and I know that because I've been reading up on what your industry is facing and what your company is facing, then you become much more convincing as a candidate, okay? So that's a clear target and what's in it for me. Here we go into the numbers game. So I mentioned a minute ago that L'Oreal has a bunch of divisions, and let's just say we took L'Oreal, Shiseido, and Estee Lauder, right, as a starting point. What I would do is create a company grid where I would put every division of those companies on the first column. So it would say company, and then the second column would say CEO. The third column would say head of marketing or head of finance or head of operations or whatever it is, the department that you're looking for. The fourth column would say, what is that company saying in the news? Okay, and then other like things that are affecting that industry, right? So that company grid, the goal of it, this is a big research piece right here. And this is another, I think, challenge that people have, is they don't do nearly enough research. They pick the top 3 or 4 companies in their industry, and then they stop there. And they don't take the time to expand that. And let me say this before I go on, a fantastic way to do research for figuring out what other companies exist in an industry is, first of all, go to look for employees in a target company that you have, okay? And then look at those employees' work histories, because typically, many of us change jobs within the same industry. I said that I went to L'Oreal, then I went to Christian Dior, and then I went to a supplier, all within the same industry. So if you want to understand what are the competitors of the company that you want, there are a couple of companies you want to work for, and what are maybe some side businesses that are related businesses where you could work, right? This is a fantastic way to use LinkedIn. Not so much to try to read job descriptions and fit yourself a square box into a round hole, but in order to find out more so you can expand and get more companies that you could write to, okay? And to the extent that you can, try to figure out an organizational chart. And when you are searching for a job, it's important to be looking at the general manager, CEO, or vice president level. I think the question I get a lot, or one of the questions, is why would I write to such a high level? I don't want to be presumptuous. But the reality is entry-level or mid-level people in an organization rarely feel that they have the political capital to recommend you, okay? And they're frequently not in a position to make a hiring decision, okay? Now, all of this work is leading you to this, and this is, I think, like your jaw drops when you see this, but generate and manage 6 to 10 conversations. That is a lot of conversations, and most people I work with are, you know, they have like 1 or 2 leads, and very often then they get so focused on the one that looks really positive that they stop their job search. So you must never stop your job search until you've signed a contract. But 6 to 10 conversations can be anything from, you know, you've had a preliminary interview, anything from you went all the way to the very end and you were one of 2, but they chose the other person, in which case you absolutely write back thanking them for a very positive experience and telling them how much you enjoyed it and how, you know, now you know you would really love to work there. And so the way I got that first job at L'Oreal was that I had actually gone in for a different position. I had gone in for a fragrance marketing position. They had to give it to an internal candidate, but then I wrote all these thank you notes to tell them how much I loved it. And then a month later, the woman who was working on skincare quit, and they brought me in. All right, so the goal, so that brings up 2 points. If you go on an interview process, stay in touch with them. Don't become angry because they don't end up hiring you. And number 2, what we are looking for right now is exactly what happened to me at L'Oreal, which is that they had an opening and they don't want to go through a whole tedious job search again. Not every single time where like 6 people need to interview you. They would much rather take someone who is pre-approved in a way. And, you know, they already knew they liked me. They had political reasons for why they had to take an internal candidate, but it was so easy to hire me then once they already knew they liked me, and it reduced the complexity of the process. Okay, this is my job search overview. That was a long, long slide. Oh, and this part, managing your mindset. You guys, part of the reason you need support, okay? If you can find a friend to go through the job search with you, if you can find a coach, whatever you can do to help you, this is a daunting, daunting process. And it takes a lot of energy, and you really need to keep your spirits up. And there's a lot of techniques to do that. But just keep in mind, if you're going through this and you feel discouraged, that is totally normal. Okay, during that 8-month process, I can tell you there were 2 times when I had these hot leads and I almost got a job, and then it just completely collapsed. And it is, I still remember it to this day. It's really very intense, okay? All right, so I mentioned that leadership and career strategy are aligned. Job search is a part of that. And what I want to talk about today is impact, influence, and initiative as 3 pieces of that. So impact is the first piece we're going to talk about. It's what are my strengths and what can that do for a team or an organization? Okay. Number 2 is influence. We're going to talk about messaging and using selling techniques to influence. In this case, for those of you who are looking for advancement, it's to influence the key people in the organization. But in job search, you want messages that are going to influence potential hiring managers, okay? And then the third piece is initiative, and initiative is about that mindset piece. You know, there are just times when you're thinking, why would I get on some, you know, networking happy hour? It just feels so pointless, but you're going to do it anyway, because job search, on the one hand, it's very methodical. And on the other hand, there's a big element of just throwing spaghetti at the wall. You just keep having to follow your strategy, get out there. There's a big piece of job search that I talk about where you are in play. All right. And forgive me for the analogy, but it's a little bit like dating. You know, all of a sudden you're on the market and everybody's asking you out, right? There's just this sort of magnetic quality where you build momentum. And so think of a job search as building momentum. And then I promise you, you don't know where you just don't know where it's going to come from. Okay. But it's important to take initiative and be in momentum. So let's start with understanding your strengths. Okay. We call them superpowers. I call them skill-based purpose, because I find, and I have found over the years, that our strengths are not just what we're good at, they're also tasks and areas of the way we approach things that come to us easily and really that energize us. So this is, you know, we think about, oh, I want to save the world by selling, you know, solar panels. That's great. But really, what's going to energize you and give you a sense of purpose is being in the right job function within a solar panel company. Okay. So, skill-based purpose, these are skills that are transferable across jobs and context. They energize you. And when I say they energize you, this is super counterintuitive, but listen to this because it's important, okay? Very often, the areas where we have the greatest impact are the ones that feel the least like work. And so it can be really hard to embrace your strengths because it doesn't feel difficult, but it's actually where you're of the most tremendous service and value to others. Okay, so I mentioned when they're clustered, they define a role. What they are not is an industry. So you guys, your skill is not your skill is not the energy business, okay? It's not the experience you've gained doing P&Ls, client management. You might be good at P&L and good at client management because of your transferable skills. You might enjoy those things because of these, but these are still acquired knowledge. Now, they're important to selling yourself, but they're not as important to figuring out what you want to do and what you want as your target. So this is just another way to, you know, in case you don't believe me, this is what Google says, right? Soft skills, being a good coach, communicating, listening well, all right? Being a good critical thinker and problem solver, and being able to make connections across complex ideas. These are all soft skills. They're transferable, right? They're not about how well you know about oil barrel pricing. Okay, so how do I identify my core skills and my impact? One great place to look is the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and that you can pretty much get online. You can look at the social style or the DISC assessment, and often those need to be done with a coach or a facilitator. I do those, but if you Google, you know, online, you can probably find out a lot about the models and you can get a sense of which of them you are. There's also something called the Hogan, which is more of a leadership, like what are your good skills and less good skills, maybe not so much about what kind of a job should you have. The Strengths Finder is another huge one, and that one has 2 assessments online. If you Google Gallup, Gallup, Strengths Finder 2.0. They have a 1995 version, which is just your top 5 strengths. And then they have a $49.99 version, which is your 34 strengths. And you can go on there. Now, what I love about the Strengths Finder, it doesn't give you as much job direction as the Myers-Briggs does, but Strengths Finder gives you a lexicon, a language for speaking about transferable skills that can help you in the work that we're doing today. The other place is to get feedback from friends and colleagues. So I often have my clients write a short email to their friends and say, you know, I'm working on a job search. It would help me a lot if you could just answer these questions for me. And the questions are, so this you can take notes for. Where do you see me energized and at my best? What kinds of problems do you come to me for? Right? And then what do you see as my strengths? And how do those strengths contribute? Okay? So if you send that to 5 or 6 people, and I know a lot of people are extremely, extremely reluctant to do this, but I will tell you it's a powerful thing. And you're not asking for negative or constructive feedback, you're just asking for the good stuff. So most people are really thrilled to do it. And I would highly suggest that that you try it. And the third thing we're gonna do right now, which is called peak experiences. So what I typically do is I combine these assessments with the feedback, with the peak experiences. And what happens is when you learn about yourself and you gain awareness about yourself from these multiple data points, in the end, it somewhat backs you into a corner where you finally say, you know what, this is who I am. I am good at these things. And I can feel confident about that, right? Everybody knows it, maybe except for you. So that's the part about that. Okay, so I hope you guys got some of those down. The Myers-Briggs and Strength Finder, I think, are going to be your key ones. Okay, so what I'd like to do right now, if you all would take a moment, and we're just going to do a little mini meditation. I just want you to think back and maybe write down in your notebook about a time in your life where you really felt fully alive. You were lost in what you were doing. Maybe you had that sense of flow that people talk about. And you felt very relaxed and at ease. It didn't feel like work. You felt energized. Now, I want you also, when we call this peak experiences, and I know this audience, okay, I'm talking to a group of very ambitious women. So please don't think that this needs to be that you won an award or that you won a Nobel Prize, okay? One of my peak experiences was teaching ski school to 5-year-old children. Another peak experience was selling ice cream. When I was in high school in the United States, we have after school jobs, and I worked at Baskin-Robbins and sold ice cream for 2 years. And I loved waiting on people. I've always loved being in front of people. I love connecting with people, okay? So these can be very simple things. And they don't all have to be work-related. Sometimes, you know, I'll hear people say, oh, I helped my best friend organize her bridal shower, you know, and they just love that. Now, what I want you to stay away from for this is graduation, childbirth, or vacation, okay? Because those are just, everybody loves those. I want you to, unless your vacation was that you organized a trip to sub-Saharan Africa for 20 people and you know that you love planning and logistics. In that, then that's different, but okay. So I'm gonna give you a minute to think about that 1 or 2 experiences. And then you're just going to answer these questions. What were you doing? Who were you with? Were you motivated internally, or did your boss motivate you or somebody else? What role did you play? And by role, I don't necessarily mean the job title, but were you the cheerleader in the group? Were you the investigator researcher in the group? Were you connecting people together? You know, what role did you play? And then what was your impact? So why did the team do better because of you? And I don't want you to, again, be overly ambitious on this idea of impact. It doesn't have to be that you increase sales by 30%. It's just, what was your contribution in that moment and to that team? Okay. So the next question becomes, I have this idea of what I want to do, right? I have a target, hopefully, well, there's still a little bit of work to do, but if you guys are going to create a target thinking about the elements that we just talked about, right? What would be my job role, and where do I want to do it to create a target? And then you have to communicate this. So this is where we get into what I call the impact statement. Again, you want to focus, and I said this already, so I won't repeat it. So what you can contribute is you can describe yourself. This is my version. I call it the impact statement. It's an elevator pitch. But let's say I was a project manager and I've been working with organizations to transition them to online platforms. Okay, so that's the experience piece. Remember I said it was going to be a combination of experience that you have and interest or skill, okay? I am good at road mapping change and getting others to see its benefits. That is absolutely a transferable skill. You know, when you're the person in the room that can convince everybody like, oh, we should change direction to this, right? So here we have a combination of an experience, a skill, and I'm now looking to build an online retail specialty for a major consultancy. So this is someone saying, I've done this a bunch, I'm really good at it, and now I can help you because I know that in the consultancy business, a lot of your clients are asking for help on going digital. Okay, so this also says that I understand, this third sentence basically says, I understand what's going on in your industry in consulting, okay? What did I want to say about this before we go on? It'll come back to me. So once we do that, so this really is the first, oh, I know what I wanted to say. This is the first line or message of your elevator pitch. So you can use this in a cover, in an email. You can use it, I don't know if I would use it on LinkedIn as a first approach. You might use it after you've connected with someone a few times, but you can certainly email something like this to someone. You could email this to someone for an informational interview. You know, maybe you could write this and say, you know, I'd love to talk to you for 15 minutes about what it's like to work in the energy department at McKinsey. I'm not sure that I want to make this transition, but I want to understand, right? Now, what I want to point out, because I know many of you, because I know the SEPA audience, and I think based on the names on this call that many of you are non-American. And what I want to point out here, I hear this a lot. I come from a French family, and so I end up having a lot of international clients, and I often hear, I can't talk about myself the way Americans do. They're so arrogant, you know, they just think that, you know, and politics aside, we have a president right now who keeps saying that he's good at everything and he knows everything. And this is the impression that many people have about Americans. But I want to point out that when you say, you know, you can say, I know that I'm good at this, or you can say, I've had success at road mapping change, or I was thrilled to be on a team where they gave me the responsibility of road mapping change. I'm proud to have been the team member who took care of this, right? There are ways to do this which are modest. You don't have to worry about arrogance. What I would highly recommend is specificity. Okay, specificity is the way to talk about your skills without sounding arrogant. Okay, good. So what you want to do, you have that initial statement, and then let's say you're either in a networking event or you're writing to someone. So in a networking event, somebody might say, oh, that's really interesting. You know, I know a company that does that, or, oh, a friend of mine did that also. It's really cool. And then you would say, yeah, when I worked at the New York Times, I studied readership data, and I was able to advise the editors on feature, layout, and content for the online transition. And, you know, what I realized that was so unique about that is that there were these old journalists who had been in business for 40 years, and they didn't want to go digital, but I was able to convince them. All right. And then here's another one. So this would be the digital part of the story, right? So this supports the digital piece of that earlier statement. And then this supports the consulting piece. So I also worked at a consultancy where they frequently chose me to be the face of the project for clients because I'm good at explaining very technical and unfamiliar topics to clients with more mature businesses. Okay? So when you hear those two in combination with this, you start to say, huh, that, I think she knows what she's talking about, and we actually kind of need that right now, okay? So for you guys, what's going on in energy? What is your point of view about how you would fix that? Okay, that's where you get this piece. Here's your point of view, okay? It's actually, all of it amounts to your point of view. You know, this is what you think the industry needs, and this is why you think you're good at it. Okay. Next piece is tell everyone you know. So remember in the beginning, I said you create, on that big ugly chart, I said you create, what did I call it? My chart, right? Where you write the company, the leaders, and all of that. And in order to get to those people, what often happens is people think, oh, you know, the guy I need to meet is the CEO and chairman of Shell Oil. Well, here's the reality. Unless you have a really good connection, you are unlikely to meet the CEO of Shell Oil, except maybe at a huge industry event where that person is going to speak on stage, and then about 100 people are going to be gathered around. So you're going to meet that person when they're full of adrenaline, they've just been on stage or on a panel, they're very distracted, and there's about 50 other people who want to talk to them. So the goal here is that you don't want to meet the head of Shell Oil unless you've had an introduction from a friend of a friend, right? And you want to start with people who know you, who trust you, who've experienced your work ethic, who know that, that you're good at what you do and that you're a reliable professional. Okay? So what I want to put here that's really important is that the elevator pitch, okay? So this impact statement, many people think, oh, I'll use it when I get to here. No, you don't use it when you get to here. You use it here and here and here. Because what happens is, you know, Julie and I know each other through SEPA. And we really like each other and we have a great time working together. But if Julie ever were to tell me what is the next promotion she wants within the SEPA world, I don't know what that is. She has to explain it to me. She has to give me her impact statement about what she wants next and why she thinks she'd be good at it. And by the same token, in my business, I do a lot of different things that Julie doesn't know anything about. So, you know, Julie might know someone who works at a pharmaceutical company. And guess what? Right now, pharmaceutical companies are not laying people off because they're all super busy. So it's a great time for introductions to pharmaceutical companies, but I need to make that very specific to her. And I need to say to her, look, I do this coaching, I do a lot of trainings to corporations. And I really think right now pharmaceutical companies are in a period of opportunity and high stress, and I can help them make the most of this time. Can you introduce me to someone? And she might say, you know what? I don't know anyone at pharmaceutical company A, but a friend of mine works in, is a doctor, and I know a lot of the pharmaceutical reps call on him. Okay, so can I make an introduction to him? Okay, now I would love to take some questions. If you guys want to, what I want to tell you is that consistent action produces results. There may be some of you on this call who want more information, who want to, who would like support as you go through this. And because you guys are through SEPA, I offer a 30-minute free consultation, which I'm more than happy to do with you. Right now, because I know that things are really in flux, I normally have a 6-month leadership and job search program, and I'm actually doing it in 2-month increments because I realize it's a lot for people right now, or not, you know, but I'm happy to talk to you guys about that. So if you want that, please, you can go to, you know what, you can email me, Claire, C-L-A-I-R-E, at clearstrategycoaching.com. Okay? Very important. Resources from this webinar, please understand me, is a book that is written about the Myers-Briggs, and it's a fantastic book that kind of puts the Myers-Briggs into layman's terms so it's easier to understand. So if you're in that position where you want to learn more about yourself, Through the Brick Wall is a book by Kate Wendelton. It's about 30 years old or more right now, and it doesn't have a ton. She wrote subsequent updates that talk more about LinkedIn and online job search. However, the methodology of Through the Brick Wall is still valid. So it's this idea of how do you create a target and how do you approach people who could offer you those jobs rather than waiting, okay? Finding the Fun Forever Job by Ellis Chase has a fantastic chapter on interview skills. And Ellis is another coach through the Columbia world. That book is fantastic. And then StrengthsFinder 2.0 by Tom Rath, it'll explain everything. The 7 stories exercise, that's the peak experience. I call it peak experience. I do it a little bit differently, but the origins of that exercise are this 7-story exercise from the 5 o'clock club. Now, for those of you who are looking to advance within your organization, there's also another absolute favorite of mine called Expect to Win by a woman named Carla Harris. And she is a woman who came out of Harvard Business School, went to work for Morgan Stanley, and got passed over for promotion once or twice. And finally, you know, she realized that she needed to figure out how to manage her career, that career management is different than hard work, right? And so she learned how to do that, and she ultimately became the first African-American woman managing director at Morgan Stanley. She's incredible. So read that book. And then I do want to take some questions. Let me stop the share here. And I hope I covered a bunch of stuff. I'm going to look in, oops. Julie, I don't know why I'm not seeing the chats. Ah, here they are. Okay, so you guys, if you have questions now, I can stay on for another few minutes. I don't know, Julie, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so if anyone has questions, you can either use the raise hand feature or just sort of unmute yourself and jump in, or put it in the chat feature. So since no one has any questions right now, I'm going to take some of the questions that we put in actually the marketing material for this,
yeah, great.
For this webinar. So one of the, a couple of the questions that we had was, what if I get laid off because of the current situation? Or what if this break derails my promotion? Do you have sort of any feedback or strategies, either if somebody gets laid off or if somebody retains their job, but the promotion goes haywire because of everything that's going on?
Yeah, so here's what I would, if you're getting laid off, my first advice is going to be do everything you need to, we really, there is an enormous amount of uncertainty right now. And I think it's going to be a combination of being fiscally responsible. So if it means, shutting down expenses, moving home, I don't know what it means for a lot of people, but reducing expenses to the extent that you can. But there's also this, there was a great article about, anyway, have your vision. Don't give up your vision just because you get laid off right now. So figure out what you need to do in the short term so that you can get out of survival mode. Because if you go into survival mode, your fear and that managing the mindset is going to shut you right down. So do what you need to do to get out of the panic survival mode, and then continue with your long term. Now, are there adjustments that you'll have to make because certain industries are going to be hit hard for a period of time? Is there opportunity now because, oil is all out of whack, so maybe suddenly sustainable energy is going to be really a great place to look, right? So look for the opportunities, but know that in terms of job function, you can continue to have a long-term view, okay? The second question about what if it derails your promotion or your advancement? Keep in mind what I said earlier, that a lot of these promotions take a year to 18 months to strategize anyway. So please start the message now and say, look, I know things are on hold, but ultimately where I'm looking to go is here. It's not going to be for a while anyway. So what do you need to see from me over the next 6 to 12 months to make you feel confident that I am ready for that advancement and that increased responsibility? And listen to what your manager has to say. And not just your manager, but again, this is in the Carla Harris book, other people within your organization who may have the influence to help you get promoted, okay? LinkedIn, okay. Yeah, okay, so these are all good questions. Julie, can we stay on a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the impact statement one more time. I'm happy to share these slides. Julie, can you, if it's all right with you, I'll send it out to the whole list.
Yeah.
Julie will. Can you talk a little bit more about LinkedIn? what's a good strategy for better selling myself on LinkedIn? Okay, there's a really good book. Well, it's more for business development than it is for, but there's a book called LinkedIn Unlocked. And a lot of it is about business development, but there's a lot of tricks. So a lot of it is having the right keywords. I would think that, should I comment more on posts from people I consider important? Should I public blog posts on LinkedIn on a specific topic? A lot of cold emailing if I don't have a connection to the target person. Okay, so a couple of things. I think I'm a little bit convinced, you know, I see like the CEO of Coty who is on there saying comments every day. And I really struggle to believe that the CEO of Coty is all over LinkedIn every day. So I think these people actually have junior people who are writing these comments on their behalf. So I don't know that liking a lot of that stuff is going to work. I think writing directly to the person probably works better than commenting on their posts. I do think having a point of view and sharing it, and if you're going to comment, do more than like, oh, that's so interesting, great. You know, do like, wow, I really agree with that because what I find is XYZ, okay? So don't be afraid to stick your neck out and have an opinion. Now, one of the things that this LinkedIn Unlocked book talked about is first making connections and seeing if people accept your connection, and then little by little starting to, you know, I loved your article the other day on so-and-so, but write to them directly, right? And build the relationship. It takes a long time. It's a little bit of a long-term endeavor, but I think that it can be worthwhile. It is a lot of work. You have to write to a lot of people on LinkedIn to get a response. The other thing is, in your profile, make sure you're describing what you do, what you're interested in, have those target words, right? And then there's always introductions. The other thing is that not everybody, but some people have, once you're linked to them, they have their direct email. They have their contact information. You just have to click on it. And there you could write the sort of email that we wrote today, right? I don't know why people are more willing to read it over email than they are over LinkedIn. So the other thing, I don't use LinkedIn, but I don't really use any online job engines. I don't know that any of those other, like, what is it called? Job Monster, or, you know, I don't know that any of the online job search is better than LinkedIn. I think that the goal here is to identify organizations you want to work with and find your way to them, right? With very
yeah, I can come in. Also, another online website that might be useful is Glassdoor, because you also have ratings from people who worked there or previously worked there. Obviously, sometimes you have to take these things with a grain of salt. If you have a disgruntled employee who left a bad review, but there are a lot of people who leave actually honest and really kind and sort of just useful reviews. And Glassdoor has it's like a job feature, so you can look at a company, see what the employees are saying about that company, and then sometimes they'll have jobs listed on there as well.
Yep. Good. What else? You guys, this really is a unique time, and I would encourage you in many ways, and I'm doing this myself. I'm doing a lot of long-term projects because my work has slowed down. And, you know, is that ideal? I don't know, but you have to decide to embrace it. So this is a fantastic time if you haven't done this work before to really understand you and what you're good at. I would highly encourage you to take this time to do a little bit of that personal exploration, and you will find that it will serve you well in the long run.